many sights to see when I look in my window. So many different people to be that it's strange, so strange. You got to pick up every stitch. You got to pick up every stitch. You got to pick up every stitch. Oh, must be the season of the witch. Must be the season of the witch. Oh, must be the season of the witch.
Welcome aboard to the sinking ship that is this podcast. I am your main protagonist, Madhog Thy Master, also known as the Man-Beard. And I am joined, as always, by my very professional-looking co-host, WhyBoy.
That is I. And I do have a microphone and a little stand now. It is very nice to have.
Now, when you said stand, my mind went into very specific reference mode, I have to say. But I will not go into that, because I don't care about that. What I do care about, instead, is complaining about my internet connection. Again.
Well, right now it doesn't seem like there is a major delay on it. I'm able to talk to you much more stably than last time.
Yes, but you're coming off horribly mangled.
Except for that pause.
There we go. Fantastic. Off to a great start. Up until 5 minutes ago, my internet has been flip-flopping in between maybe stable to non-existent. It has been unpleasant. But regardless, here I am trying to make a podcast with my good friend here, the boy of many wonders.
That's me.
Yes.
And I'm happy to be part of this podcast, even though the circumstances are vastly more annoying with the internet and such.
Yes, they would be. But anyway, let's talk about positive topics. Speaking of which, last weekend I went to see Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah, very nice. I've been hearing all my friends have been going to that.
Have you seen it yet?
I have not. But
I'm going to spoil the entire film right now. So there is this one scene in which...
You can do that if you want. I don't care.
You should be caring, actually, because this one is pretty good. You know...
Oh, no, I'm certain that it's really good. Just superhero movies are sort of movies that I go to with friends to see. It's that sort of like big event where you go with a bunch of friends and you can talk about it afterwards. Like, I've seen a lot of the superhero movies. I haven't kept up to date on them. But I know there's like the big crossover event that basically celebrates all the movies. And a lot of people have been really excited for it. And I'm happy for them for that.
Well, they
it's just not really a movie that I go out to see on my own.
By design, they have to be excited. This is a payoff that's basically 10 years in the making. So it cannot afford to be anything less than outstanding. And it was. It really was. So I will not actually spoil what happens in it. I will not, but I will say this. As of now, it is my favorite film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Up until this point, my favorite one was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm ignoring the delay. And then my second favorite was Thor Ragnarok. They came out in the same year, basically, but I really enjoyed Thor Ragnarok. And I guess Black Panther is good too, but I think it is more important as a film than it is actually as flawless as people claim it to be. And it does a lot of elements right. The world building, the characters, the ensemble, the fact that the proper protagonist in this film isn't the titular Black Panther, but the entire fictional nation of Wakanda. That really helps give that film its own dimension amidst all the superhero flicks in the Marvel universe. What made me enjoy Infinity War, and I'll give you this bit of information without giving you any specific information that would spoil the potential enjoyment out of you, is that Thanos, the big bad of the Marvel universe that we've been waiting for, well, for him to get out of his throne and do something, well, he definitely does do something in this one. In fact, by all intents and purposes, Thanos is the protagonist of this film. He is the central element of it, and all of the other characters are basically obstacles in his own quote-unquote hero's journey. Because yes, what is clever about Infinity War is the way they flip the script on the classic hero versus villain dynamic. In a typical formula for a Marvel film, they would set up a story centering around a superhero that would then continue throughout several other movies. And whatever villain is there, said villain would be nothing but an obstacle for the hero to overcome, and thus it ends up not being particularly interesting. Because, again, the hero and his or her story has to be the focus. Black Panther almost subverts that by having an almost interesting villain, but alas, Killmonger should have been much more than what it actually ended up being.
Yeah, I would agree there. Killmonger was somewhat interesting as a villain, but it doesn't feel the execution for me didn't really pan out in a lot of ways.
Understandable. Well, Thanos, as I said before, completely flips the script and the formula, because Thanos is now the de facto protagonist of this story, other than being the villain. In fact, this is very much his story, his own journey with his own origin story and his own goals. And all of the heroes in the film, as interesting and fascinating it is to see them interact with each other, they are basically antagonists. They are the obstacles for him to overcome in order to reach his destination. And make no mistake,
Right.
Thanos is actually a surprisingly complex and nuanced character. Way more nuanced and subtle than you would expect the amazing Bulk to be, really, in this kind of film. Because yes, he is throwing heroes and clenching his gauntlet fist more times than you can count, but he manages to have a dimension and a logic behind his maddening actions. And he's really good. Josh Brolin really knocks it out of the park with his performance as the amazing Bulk, as it were. That performance, along with everything else surrounding that performance, is really what elevates Infinity War to a modern-day classic of the genre. So yes, it is my favorite Marvel film so far, pretty much because of Thanos. It is
Yeah.
It is
And
just
I've been
right.
hearing. Just right.
Yes, meme
Yeah, I've
just
been
right.
hearing that around as well, like Thanos being one of the favorite parts for a lot of people. That's by how complex he is. And I've heard more about the ending, more just about everyone's reactions to it. Like that one famous picture on Twitter right now where somebody had to be wheeled out because he was so surprised by it in an ambulance.
Oh boy!
Like, what could it be?
Yes, you know what?
You'll have to go to the movies to find out.
I have to say, it was interesting to gauge on everyone's reaction in that cinema as that ending unfolded. Because yes, you have to be aware by now that this film isn't just a payoff for a 10 years long wait, it is also setting up a immediate sequel by design. Mild spoilers, by the way.
Of course.
So, yes, and it does a banged up job in setting that up properly, and I honestly cannot wait to see more of that. It was really that good and that bold of an ending. It is a status quo derailing juggernaut. And I could not be more happy about this. What's really admirable, and at the same time also scary about the Marvel Studios films is how much money they can make by just taking the most outlandish risks any big-time Hollywood film studio could ever make.
Right.
So yes, Infinity War. I don't need to tell you to go watch it because everybody and their dog are eventually going to watch it. It's baffling to think that it only came out 2 months apart from Black Panther, and Black Panther is still technically being broadcast in cinema as we speak.
Yeah.
So basically the only other film that can compete with Black Panther is Infinity War. This is the world we live in.
Weird. Like you really hear of like two movies from the same company just being in theaters at the exact same time. Like you don't really hear of 2 Disney movies being in the theater at the same time.
Yes, 2 Disney movies.
It's interesting, and still, it's going to be a big hit either way.
Oof. But that's Infinity War. I really liked it, and here I am, standing before you, well, sitting before you, thinking to myself, wow, there's no way anything else can blow me away as much as Avengers Infinity War did this week. And then I watched episode 4 of the 3rd season of My Hero Academia. And I was just reminded...
Nice, yeah.
I was just reminded why that is the best superhero show, potentially of all time. With just 20 minutes of it. Oh, that show. It always finds a way.
Really well done.
The quality isn't always consistent with the show because it's a battle shonen, and those kinds of specific stories in that kind of specific genre, they have their lows and highs inevitably. They have their fillers, very misguided sense of humor. But once the show gets rid of all that and it focuses on the harrowing drama of the moment, it is as emotionally powerful as it can possibly get. So yes, episode 4 of My Hero Academia personally blew me away much further than Infinity War did. And that's a testament to good, powerful, emotional storytelling done right.
Yeah, it was a wonderful show. I just watched it last night before I went to bed. And I haven't read the manga first and seen that whole fight between Deku and Muscle got on paper and just how it translated to animation. There's just so much impact in that, and so much emotion just put into everything.
Indeed.
And you just see like the disgustingness of Deku's arm being basically ripped apart so horribly, and by the end of it, it's all ragged and basically broken to the very nth of the word of broken is. You just see how much pain he goes through just to be a hero, and it just hits you right in the heart.
Yes, it's really well done. I am pretty sure everybody loves this show by this point. Now, to be fair, the first 3 episodes of the new season were quite slow on the intake, on the uptake, on the take, as it were. They had to basically summarize what has happened up until that point and establishing what was happening up until episode 4, that is. But it's with episode 4 that it really gets going and it doesn't let up. If I have one complaint, though, they need to kill off Mineta as soon as possible. He is killing the enjoyment of the show every time he's on screen.
But they never do.
That's the kind of character that exists to be a comic relief, except he occasionally is supposed to have his serious moment, but he can never work as either a funny or serious character because his own ongoing one-note joke is absolutely reprehensible, and unfortunately it is a long time running staple within the anime industry to have the light-hearted lech, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically just sort of the running joke of everyone just sort of hating Mineta right now. Like, I will admit, I did like his fight in the early season, and that was a really good moment for him, but he's still a little horrible person.
It is. But like I said, when My Hero Academia drops the shenanigans that aren't funny, that's when it gets real good. Unfortunately, you might have to wait a few episodes before you get to the unbelievably impactful fight scenes.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, My Hero Academia's fight scenes are just some of the best animated and choreographed fight scenes that I've seen. Like, I don't even know how long.
Well,
like, every single one of the main ones have basically just been just mind-blowing in its scope. Yeah, the scope of them are just sort of small. Like one of the biggest fights of the last season was just between Deku and Todoroki. In the grand scheme of all fight scenes and all that, that's a really small thing. That's basically just like a karate match in a tournament. But they made it such an explosive, emotional sort of turning point for both characters. Even though in the grand scheme of the world, it's so small. But that's just what the whole show is really good about. It's about making that emotion to like the grandiose sort of moments that basically turn the whole anime on its head. That turn the whole superhero genre on its head. And it just makes My Hero Academia much more insightful than a lot of other shows out there nowadays. While also just being just a shonen battle anime.
Yes. In fact, what I find really appealing about My Hero Academia, it's basically a Silver Age comic imbued with battle shonen. What's not to like?
Right.
I would argue that shows like Psycho Mob 100 and One Punch Man also had some of the best animated fight scenes of the modern era, along with My Hero Academia.
Definitely.
Those are all pretty good shows right now. I have to say, this is a pretty good moment for anime, as far as I'm personally concerned. This is a very good season right now. There is this show I am watching right now titled Magical Girl Ore. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I think I saw it on your Twitter a few times.
Yes, I've tweeted extensively about it. It's really quite something. It starts off as a silly, funny parody of the Mahou Shoujo genre, the magical girl genre, as it is, that flips a few conventions on its head, including the familiar animal being this ugly, tough-looking Yakuza that tries to look cute, and the girl transforms into this butch, muscular man wearing drag. But as the show goes on, it turns out to be much more than I anticipated it, because there aren't really jokes at the expense of the female-to-male transformation, as much as there are jokes, clever jokes built around that, not at the expense of it. And as it turns out, the show is really about queer positivity and a commentary about gender politics, which is surprisingly progressive for Japan. In fact, one element that plays a bigger role in that positive message is in the character design itself. The manly magical girls, which, you know, are literally men wearing girly dresswear, they look legitimately cute. I can't believe I am saying this, seeing that I am the straight man in our group here.
Yeah.
But
right.
They are actually adorable. Media have been conditioning us to place psychological walls between what is generally considered to be manly, and therefore good, and what is generally considered to be girly, and therefore not for men. What's clever and progressive about this anime is how it effortlessly combines the two distinguished elements, and it does not create a contrast. Rather, it creates a juxtaposition and a legitimately appealing design. The two elements don't contrast each other, they complement each other, and thus those manly, muscular men with girly dresses look legitimately appealing and not appalling. And that, my friend, just by design, by character design that is, says a lot about gender politics.
Yeah, because the last sort of anime that basically had that sort of like men dressed as women thing, and basically on a big wide scale, was in One Piece. But as we saw in One Piece, they more played that as just sort of like, oh, they're gross, disgusting, they're all weird and tough and all that.
Yes,
Not really playing it as just sort of like a positive stereotype, except if you could arguably say like Bon Clay would be the only positive stereotype of the whole bunch. But definitely the overwhelming one is just like, ugh, gross, they're tough at wearing dresses and such, they're weird.
Well, you know, as much as One Piece managed to stay good, generally good and relevant throughout the years, unlike any other battle shonen to my knowledge, its longevity is encomiable. It is also a much more mainstream series, and unfortunately certain stereotypes still play a bit in the mainstream mentality that needs to be changed. And I am glad Magical Girl Ore exists to try and change that mentality. Baby steps, but significant baby steps, no less. I would recommend it to you because it is also really funny. Really, really, really funny.
I've been looking for a really funny anime, so I'll definitely be going into that. I've been basically actually running up a list of anime that I really want to watch and catch up on.
Add that to your list.
Yeah, I'll just write it right there. Magical Girl Alright, there we go.
Yes. The world needs...
I actually have a notepad right in front of me for this.
The world needs big boys in drag. Now more than ever.
They certainly do.
Big boys in drag! Big boys in drag! Big boys in drag!
Big boys in drag! Yay!
Yes. I think you might appreciate big boys in drag on a different level than my own.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I just have my female character Vanilla, and she is the height of femininity. She is perfect the way she is.
You know what you should be doing? You should be doing a watching stuff video of this show, but with your character instead of you.
That would actually be... That would be something to do. I'll have to ask one of my characters to do it and see what they think.
I'd like to do an entire podcast with just that character.
Just imagining a whole hour.
Yes, pretty much. Oh boy. So you might be aware of this meme that has been circulating around about people contesting the idea that Infinity War is the most ambitious crossover of all time.
Yeah, the other meme that I was just seeing around, just like, our Infinity War spoiling party, just come on, let's spoil it for everybody.
Okay.
Like, I thought that was the major big thing that was going around.
Okay.
I'm just like, oh, those guys are sad.
Okay, well, you ruined the bit. I was going to segue into Scoobynatural with that.
Well, you can just say, like, the next big crossover that they want to ruin is Scooby Natural.
Yes, I mean...
Transition.
There was the meme about Infinity War being the most ambitious, blah, 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 blah. And then I was going to say, oh yeah? Well, here's Scooby Natural. That was going to be the bit, which you ruined with your blabbering and all that.
I didn't even blabber. I was just saying there was another meme that I thought was even more stupid than that. Because the internet always shows that it's stupid.
Okay, so do you want to actually talk about Scooby Natural? Or not?
Maybe.
You better be wanting that, otherwise this will be a short podcast. Damn it.
Sure, we'll talk about Scooby Natural.
I swear to you, I'll drive this podcast around and go back home. Jeez. Okay. This is a cold take as far as takes tend to go, because Scooby Natural came out a few weeks ago by now.
Yeah. It came out almost a month ago now.
It is the completely unexpected crossover, the R-rated crossover, no less, between Scooby-Doo and Supernatural. And it's bloody, gory, and there are a lot of swear words. So...
Yeah.
They make sure that you know that this isn't so much as a crossover between Supernatural and Scooby-Doo, as it is an episode of Supernatural with Scooby-Doo in it. And to me, personally, that's a detriment to what this special could have been. And I'll get to that.
Because it's basically just the Supernatural guys going through this one episode of Scooby-Doo, and then there's the ghost going around killing people.
Literally killing people.
And that's the episode.
Dismembering guts and decapitated heads, blood, and the Scooby Gang is faced with their own mortality, and the Supernatural guys are trying to keep everything together, as it were.
Right.
I have reservations about this, because yes, I enjoyed it for the most part. I laughed out loud at a few moments. It was fun, as much as it was unexpected. But as soon as I finished watching it, I had immediately some issues with it. Specifically, I find issues with the framing device, being, as we said, the fact that this is a Supernatural episode, basically, instead of a proper crossover.
Yeah, it just sort of makes it sort of the Scooby-Doo aspect just feel like just bare bones in a sense of it. Because you basically have to really like Supernatural to really get into this episode. And just speaking personally, this did not make me want to watch more Supernatural.
No,
It
not
kind of just
really.
made me want to watch Scooby-Doo R-rated.
I would love to see an R-rated Scooby-Doo. And now I would know how that particular brand of R-rated Scooby-Doo would look like thanks to this special.
Yeah, because the Scooby Natural guys, really compared to the Scooby Gang, they don't really have any charisma to me. They're just sort of the bumbling brothers and all that.
Yes.
And it's just like, they're dull.
I mean, Dan has a little bit of a personality. I can tell he's the straight man of the duo. But then there is the guy who's not Dan, and I cannot even remember his name. And I cannot quite tell what his character is supposed to be, because he is simultaneously the starry-eyed nerd who's having a fanboy episode over the Scooby Gang, of which he's a fan of, but at the same time, he decides that he has to hit on Daphne pretty much constantly, and Fred is his own rival in his mind. The two facets of that character don't mesh well together, and there is a lack of a transition between them. It just makes not Dan look a bit bipolar.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, he feels like a character lifted from another just sort of crime drama show called Psych, where the main character, Sean Spencer, is just sort of like this really egotistical guy. He's childish, he's also smart and brainy, and basically is sort of a womanizer and all that. But that's his full character and such. This guy just sort of flip-flops between those two sort of aspects of him, with no transition, like you said. And he just comes off kind of bleh. And they also have an angel friend there.
Oh yes, that guy. He confused me a lot. I have never watched the Supernatural in my life, and I have no reason to start now.
Yeah, like Nero explained it to me a little bit. Like he's supposed to be like their angel friend who's basically helps them out on some of the cases and all that. And he just became sort of the sidekick of the episode. The same time with Scooby and Shaggy.
I'll say
I'm
this.
just like, wow, it is super superfluous.
Well, I'll say this. I liked Dan, at least. His character is well defined, and the way he reacts to the madness makes him relatable in that sense. So I liked him, at least.
I forgot about him. I didn't even know either of their names until this point.
I will always remember him as the guy Velma had a crush on, because he had, such dreamy shoulders.
Like, that just sort of epitomizes it, because you don't remember Dan for Dan, you remember him for Velma's reaction to him.
I remember him for his... I remember him for being the straight man to not Dan's geeky shenanigans.
Yeah, you remember him for his archetype, nothing else.
Okay, so the dynamic between the Supernatural boys and the Scooby Gang was quite funny, but I think the very premise, the very setting of this special did not allow for a complete, wholesome dynamic as much as it could have been. For the simple reason that the Scooby Gang was placed at a clear disadvantage compared to the Supernatural guys, because those guys knew what was going on and they knew about the artifice. They were provided with meta-knowledge, as it were, but the Scooby Gang was pretty much in its 1960s mode up until their world gets flipped around. And I feel that puts them at a disadvantage compared to the other guys. I think it might have been much more interesting to see their ongoing dynamic if they were both on the same level, as equals.
Yeah.
And that could have been accomplished if the special was actually a straight-up crossover. Not the Supernatural boys getting sucked in by the television because of a ghost and ended up in a episode of Scooby-Doo pretty much randomly. They could have ended up in an episode of Baywatch, in fact. For the purpose of the narrative, it wouldn't have mattered. But still, if it were to be an actual crossover, as in they both meet in the same universe and they are both animated to begin with, no meta-narrative, I think it might have been funnier.
Yeah, I feel that would have been, because it would have been more like in the real life. And then basically the only point that it really got interesting with sort of the crossover aspect is when the Scooby Gang actually realized something was going wrong. When Shaggy's arm breaks, where Fred gets a bloody nose and such. They realize, like, oh my god, I fell from a plane just like two days ago, and I was completely fine. Now I have a broken arm? What the hell?
Zoinks! And also Fred yells,
That...
I could have been fighting Dracula instead of fake monsters. Yes, there are great scenes here and there.
But that basically happens when they actually are placed on the same level.
Yes.
But sort of not on the same level as well, because at the same time, Scooby and the gang don't really do anything at the very end of things. It really is sort of the supernatural guys who basically save the day and such. And again, put the Scooby Gang into the shadows again, or in the dark, I should say, on just what was actually going on, just so they can just stay blissfully ignorant.
But to the specials' credit, I think they did a fantastic job in introducing the show itself, because the very, very first scene in the special is the two brothers fighting a man in a rubber dinosaur suit. And it's hilarious.
Beating the crap out of it. Yeah, it could actually really work. And just like with your idea, it could have all been animated as well. They just beat up this guy in a costume. It turns out to be a ghost, and then they leave to meet up with the Scooby Gang somewhere else. They could have flowed just like that.
But it's pointless to complain about
what we got is like
it could have been. We should focus on what it actually was. And to me personally, it was good for the most part, but it had a really weak, insubstantial ending. Again, mostly because of the framing device.
Yeah, because it's stuck in the supernatural guys by the end of it.
No, because they defeat the ghost and then they go back to the real world and they find out the real enemy being, surprise, surprise, just a guy who wanted to buy property.
Scooby-Doo's always about land, property, and such.
Yes. But by that point, I've lost interest because the Scooby-Doo part had already ended, so it was just a matter of waiting for it to end.
Yeah, because the interesting part was that it ended as soon as you left the TV.
Yes.
And then you're just back to the supernatural guys just making quips at each other. And they're just not very funny.
Now, to be fair, this is an intriguing premise for a supernatural episode or an episode of an otherwise similar show. You know, getting sucked into the television, ending up in different programs as you try to escape from the television. It has been done surprisingly a lot of times in both cartoons and live-action shows. I distinctly remember this episode of the Mask animated series, in which the Mask is trapped into the television because of the Channel Surfer, which is an actual antagonist. Or what about when the Teen Titans were stuck in the television because of that villain that I don't remember the name of?
Yeah, I remember Fairly Odd Parents myself, and I had a whole special about that.
But again, this is supposed to be a crossover between Supernatural and Scooby-Doo, and judging by the very premise, by the very framing device of it, it wouldn't really matter that they ended up in a Scooby-Doo show. Like I said, they could have ended up in an episode of Baywatch, or, God forbid, Baywatch Nights.
Or they could have ended up in Speed Buggy.
It could have been anything, really. Animaniacs. Freakazoid.
Yeah, just any of the Hanna-Barbera just sort of rip-offs of Scooby-Doo.
My Little Pony. Now, that would have been interesting. R-rated
Like,
My Little
there's
Pony,
overall, it
imagine
is
that.
really, yeah, like overall, it really is a fun special. It just doesn't really just sort of entice you to want to really watch more Supernatural, because the best parts of it were when Scooby-Doo was with them.
Yes.
That was the interesting part of it, seeing the R-rated stuff, and seeing how Scooby in the game actually reacted to physical pain and such. That was the interesting part. That's what drew you in. It sort of drew you out of it every time the Supernatural guys kept them in the dark and just basically just sort of like sidelined them and all that. Because that's the worst thing you can do in a crossover. They have to work together. You can't sideline one of them because it's not a crossover anymore. It's just a guest appearance.
I think they made it abundantly clear that this was supposed to be a special for Supernatural more than Scooby-Doo. In fact, I believe this aired in the same channel Supernatural is aired.
Oh, no. Yeah, it definitely aired it like that, but definitely like I kept up on a lot of the promotion and stuff. They were basically promoting it as just sort of the crossover special that would appear on Supernatural.
Like that, otherwise nobody would be interested. Only Supernatural fans would be interested. And let's face it, Supernatural has been going on for longer than Baywatch at this point. It is 11 seasons in, almost 12. It's ridiculous. As a show, it has run out of gas a long time ago, but it keeps on going and going and going.
Oh, yeah.
This seems like a stunt to generate some sort of interest in the product, more than anything else.
Right. Yeah, and it didn't do that. Well, not for me, at least.
Well,
I just want to see more Scooby-Doo.
Really, Scoobynatural should have been like the WWE Scooby-Doo crossovers, except good.
You see my videos, I still like the WrestleMania Mystery one just for how fun and stupid it is. The sequel sucks, though. It is awful. Do not watch the sequel.
No sense whatsoever. You have the WWE guys, wrestlers, wrestling, and you have them compete in a race with cars? I mean, Vince McMahon has had worse ideas in real life, so that's not completely out of the realm of possibilities. I think there was even a video game themed around the wrestlers driving monster trucks. That might have been the primary inspiration for that. But you know what bugs me? What bugs me the most about that film is that Vince McMahon claims in that film that it was Triple H's and Stephanie McMahon's idea to give wrestlers monster trucks, which makes me laugh because it seems like something he would come up with at the height of his madness.
To be fair, that sounds more like his idea.
Now, to be fair, Stephanie McMahon also notoriously has pretty bad ideas. She seems to have taken all the worst qualities from her father without any of the charisma. So there is that. But Triple H? Triple H? No! 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 That's stupid.
But yeah, even just push that aside, even that crappy sequel at least crossed over a little bit better, even though I do not like Shaking Scooby in that movie at all. At least they were working together for a goal.
I don't like The Undertaker being buddy-buddy with them. He's The Undertaker! Why would The Undertaker be friends with a stoner and a talking dog? He's The Undertaker!
Because he wants to save that orphanage, or whatever the hell he was trying to make money for.
Just the idea of The Undertaker teaming up with Dusty Rhodes to drive a monster truck is so furiously out of character. It blows my mind that they would have approved of this. They didn't care about this at all. This is my mind exploding. This is my brain escaping my cranium. This is upsetting in ways that I could not even imagine it would upset me.
Yep, it is just... It's just silliness. It is just utter silliness. Horrible silliness.
And it's boring.
They should feel ashamed for making that sequel, because it was boring and awful. Oh god. Oh god, I do hate it what they did with the Undertaker in that movie. I feel so bad for having to hang out with those two awfully written Scooby and Shaggy characters.
I could not
They are the worst they've ever been.
I could not stomach more than 20 minutes of that, honestly. Just... Michael Cole's commentary was about as good as it is in real life, so there is that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Just wrestlers. Let's have them driving monster trucks. That's a great idea.
And let's just lay a mystery on top of that.
Oh, brother. But yes, Scoobynatural, it is funny and it is fun, but it runs out of gas right around the third act.
Yes, just enjoy it for the Scooby-Doo moments. And if you're not a fan of Supernatural, don't stay around for those moments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, switching gears, you might be happy to know that it has arrived.
Oh, yeah. Oh, joy. So what did you think of it?
It's not as bad as the first two, but that isn't saying much. I honestly find myself baffled and confused and irritated just by the first 2 pages of it. No, seriously. I was 3 pages in, more or less, and I had to stop reading this and go back to reread the previous 2 issues just to make sense of whatever timeline and continuity I was in. Time has passed in between these issues, and it shows in the worst possible way. And you know what? I have decided, once I have better internet, more solid connection, and lack of terrible delays, I'm going to do a live review of the 3rd issue, and you're going to assist me on that.
Okay, sounds good.
But until that point, well, I'm afraid the beautiful ire of my performance art shall have to wait.
Oh.
Also, one of the books that I have pre-ordered, The Pervert by Remy Boydell, which I briefly discussed in the previous podcast, is on its way as we speak. It has been launched, it has been sent. It will arrive here in the 2nd week of May, so it's not a long wait from here on out. I cannot wait to sink my teeth on that one. I'm really curious about it. As far as the other one goes, as in Pinky. Pinky and Pepper Forever.
Pepe.
Pinky and Pepper Forever by Ivy Atoms. That one will be shipped on June, I believe. It is not sold on Amazon. It is sold by a independent zine, as it were, named Silver Sprocket. So it makes sense that the shipping might be delayed in that regard. But nonetheless, I will have all the comics I want in my grasp. And a comic that I didn't want also. And I will discuss about all of these graphic novels and issues once I have them, using this very format.
That sounds good to me.
And I guess that makes it for yet another podcast. Hooray!
Yay! Thank you, Delay, for joining us as well.
time for plugs. Plugs, plugs, plugs. Plugs for days, plugs for weeks, plugs for months. You go first.
That's I shall just plug Toongrin.com. We're doing a lot more videos this month, just a whole bunch of them. Like I'm going to be doing by the end of the month, a cartoon corner of Land Before Times. What did I think of this Dawn Blues classic? You're going to see at the end of the month. Ooh! And I'm still doing like an editorial on Is Animation Just for Kids? And also another cartoon corner review of the European folk hero Jester Till. They're all being written, and they're all going to be coming soon. Yay! And what are your plugs?
Well, you can find me as always on patreon.com/Madhog, where you can see preview screenings of my videos. And you can follow me on Twitter at AdrianoBordoni1. Of course, don't forget to subscribe of my YouTube channel and click the notification bell to keep you updated on my videos. And that about covers it. Thanks for watching us, everybody. I have been Madhog Die Master.
And I have been Question Boy, the WhyBoy.
Yes. It's been good knowing you.
What, are you gonna murder me now?
Right, so...
Yes,
WhyBoy,
help me.
I'm going to say this to you. You might want to take a look at this podcast once it goes on air.
My eyeballs? Is it my stare?
I have been Madhog Die Master.
Goodbye. We good?
Yeah, we're good.